Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Hey.
Welcome back to the Circus of Safety. Woo! Episode 5, gentlemen.
We're here.
Who'd
Good
have thought
morning.
it?
Absolutely stunning. Hey, listen to our audience out there. Welcome back. Where Des, Andy, and myself try to guide you through the chaos and the circus that has become safety. So, thanks for joining us. Episode 5. Absolutely amazing. Now, guys, I know we've all been really busy over the last week or so since the show last aired a couple of weeks ago. But listen, I thought I'd take the time. We got a bit of feedback off that last show, which was really cool. Obviously, it shows that people are listening, people are engaging, and this is going to be quite intimidating. But people are actually taking on board what we're talking about, right? And they're engaging in the conversation, which is when we catch up. That was the whole point of this, right? So really exciting. So I just want to share some feedback on the last episode before we get into it, and we'll crack it on from there, right? So this has come from
Sounds good.
Craig Gardner. So thank you, Craig, if you're watching today. Big shout out to you for contributing on the last show. And his feedback, and I'll read it to you, is the conversation related to qualifications is important. So great thing that it came up on the wheel, right? Much of it is because of the ineffective vocational education, which is a fascinating approach. If any education, including health and safety, is not relevant and applicable, it will be forgotten. The qualification just demonstrates you had the time and money to stick at the course. If you improve the business, the culture, and the lives of those you're responsible for or can influence, then you are qualified. So, some great engagement there, right? And some more food for thought around our topic from the show last week, right?
It's quite a unique take on the whole position, which is good.
I actually caught up with Craig last week. Had dinner with him, and it was we talked, which was great.
So, Andy, are you taking this virtual thing into the real world, mate?
Yeah, there's no difference to me. Safety's safety,
wow.
whether it's virtual or real. It's just safety.
Wow.
Just you've had dinner with everyone.
Trying to save lives.
Wow.
Pretty
Wow.
much.
Hey, listen, actually, hang on, Andy. Before we start making big statements like we're trying to save lives, Des, listen, can you just cover us off again before we start going down this rabbit hole? Make sure that we're protected.
Yeah, and look, I have to say, who would have thought people could be so passionate about disclaimers? And once again, I've received pretty scathing vitriol from numerous listeners about the disclaimer from last episode.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So this time the complaint is that it was too verbose, too much legalese, incomprehensible.
Wow. Okay. Jeepers. Mate, tough crowd, right? Tough crowd.
Look, to be honest, it's hard not to take this personally. I've convinced myself to rise above this and improve and to add value, because that's what we're about.
Go Des.
So for fear of being accused of a lack of audience perspicacity, I've redrafted this disclaimer and pitched it at a level that reflects the harsh criticism I've been receiving. So here it goes.
Okay, stand by.
Once upon a time, in a magical land called Safetyville, a group of friendly creatures embarked on a journey to learn about workplace health and safety. This podcast, The Circus of Safety, is here to share their exciting tales with you, our little listeners. But before we start our adventure, here's a little note just for you. Dear little explorers, welcome to Safetyville, where giggles and learning go hand in hand. Our podcast is like a treasure map, guiding you through the forests of knowledge and the mountains of understanding about staying safe at work. But remember, just like a real adventure, it's important to be cautious and prepared. While our podcast is full of fun stories and helpful tips, it's not a substitute for grown-up advice. Before trying anything you hear about on our show, be sure to ask your parents, guardians, or other wise grown-ups for their thoughts and guidance. They know what's best for you. Sometimes workplaces can be as tricky as enchanted mazes, but don't worry, our podcast is here to teach you how to spot hazards, use safety tools, and be a smart and careful little worker. From magical factories to make-believe offices, we'll explore it all with safety as our guiding star. Remember, Safetyville is a make-believe place, and the creatures you'll meet are just characters from stories. Real workplaces might be a bit different, but the lessons you learn here can help you stay safe in any world. So put on your imagination hats, hold your curiosity close, and let's dive into the enchanting world of workplace health and safety together. With a sprinkle of knowledge and a dash of caution, it will be the bravest little work that Safetyville has ever seen. Stay safe, stay curious, and let the adventures begin.
Wow. Wow. There's mate, I don't know what you mate, I don't know what you do between shows, but Jesus creepers. You've clearly got way too much time on on your hands, mate.
I put my heart and soul into this, Brenton, and nothing less.
Oh, well, well, there's listen, mate. If it means anything to you, you've had a rapturous applause from the chat. We got Nia Schnapp and Lun Kaya, mate. They're in hysterics, just like we are. So that, yeah, thank you. And I think I might be having a bit of a slow internet day by the looks, if I've got that right. Um, yep, cool. Okay, so okay, I'm hoping.
Yep, we can still hear you.
No,
A little
damn
bit
internet.
scratchy, but we still got you.
Oh, I think
So,
I'm back.
Andy, have you done anything interesting over the last couple of weeks?
I went out for dinner with Craig Garner. It was awesome.
Of course.
We talked about the benefits of vocational education. Sorry, you mentioned by Brenton. Yeah, it was good to catch up with Craig. Caught up with a few other people. Finished reading that everyone's hanging out happened about self-regulation, if it can improve safety in the chemical industry. And you'll be pleased to hear, according to the report, it can. What is interesting, though, is that they actually compared it to no regulation as opposed to external regulation. So, so the headline that you can take is that self-regulation improves safety in the chemical industry. But if you delve a bit deeper, it's a very specific piece of research that doesn't necessarily tell the whole story.
That's a shame. It would have been nice to see it compared to actual regulation, third-party regulation.
Yeah, absolutely. And yourself, what you've been up to, Des?
Well, I alluded to a bit of an update in the safety clutter space at the end of the last episode. I thought I'd forget about mentioning but I did remember. And basically, there's an organization I'm associated with that completed a pre-qualification without submitting any documented evidence and managed to receive top scores. And as far as I'm aware, this is the first time a pre-qualification without documented evidence has been attempted. And the fact that it was very successful is a great thing, but also arguably it provides more assurance from a pre-qual than you would get from a desktop assessment.
So what was the nature of that assessment? How did that assessment unfold?
So it was the having instead of submitting a documented evidence to a pre-qualification assessor provider, we had that assessor actually come to the work location and perform the assessment.
Wow.
So
that's a brilliant
it's a cool innovation, because really, like so much of the evidence that causes, or so much of the safety clutter that we have is to gather evidence for these types of activities, these external audits, these pre-qualifications. So if you can eliminate the need to generate that evidence, then you should be able to reduce a significant amount of safety clutter.
Absolutely. What's interesting, or one of the interesting points there, is that the assessor needs quite a different skill set. So you can't just take your assessors that are evaluating documents and suddenly put them on a site. I mean, that would be a recipe for disaster, I would imagine. So how was the assurance there? Was everybody comfortable with how it was happening? Was it a specific assessor that came out of the field?
It was, yeah. So I can do a shout out to Sitewise who facilitated that pre-qualification. They were exceptionally good with it, and they had a sort of a specialized assessor come out, and it's basically, to me, it boils down to how you view evidence. And if you view evidence as everything has to be documented, then this sort of thing is going to be problematic. But if you view evidence inherently as oral, which I would argue that legally it is, then this sort of thing is kind of an obvious better way to go about things. So it was cool to see that theory worked.
So would you get to the, well, I mean, in my mind, it starts to beg the question of whether you should be outsourcing pre-qual anyway. Because if you're doing it on your site, then shouldn't you just be doing it?
Yeah, it kind of becomes little different from having an external audit, which, you know, a face-to-face audit, which to me is a better quality. Still
Absolutely.
just a moment in
We've been having
time,
a few
and
technical problems here. We
yeah,
can't hear Brenton. He's just sent us a message in. I'm assuming you.
no, we can't see him
Brenton.
either.
And
Oh,
we're not just enjoying the. Oh, we've just heard him.
We got him.
oh,
I've
am
just
I
heard
back?
him.
Am I?
Yeah,
Oh,
we got
I'm
You're
audio.
back.
back, and we've got video
Oh,
of the
boys, sorry, mate. I really
spinning wheel.
appreciate you. Really appreciate that. I don't know what happened. Suddenly, I just fell off the bloody face of the earth. So apologies for that. Thanks for filling time. So great to hear what I've been here all the time. So great to hear what you've been up to. Been absolutely stunning. But are we ready to spin the wheel, boys?
I think so.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
We've
Let's
run
do
out
it.
of things to talk about.
Okay, here we go.
Where's the music?
What's going on? Here we go. Capability of the safety sector. Now, I guess we could argue similar to last week, but different, isn't it?
It
Yeah,
is.
they're
I
kind of
find it
following
interesting
very
that we've
closely
used the word
from.
sector.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough. So, just bouncing around the. I mean, Des, what are your thoughts? I think this might have been that you suggested we take up.
Possibly, I probably would have worded it as the lack of capability in the safety sector. But I think that if I'm not being so cynical, it's I think there's some prevailing beliefs in the safety profession that are just simply wrong and need to be changed in order for any progress to be made. And so long as those beliefs continue, then we're not going to go anywhere.
Wow, mate, that sort of sounds
It was interesting.
like let's all sit around and sing kumbaya. That's awesome. Andy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just found it was interesting that Des used the term profession and that's not what came up on the wheel. I don't want to correct Des because I would never dream of doing that. But I find it interesting that we use safety sector or in the original thing, and in conversations I've had recently, I'm reluctant to refer to it as a profession because I see a lot of practices that I would deem to be unprofessional by a number of different people within the industry as such, or the sector. I think for me it goes back to what are the key skills? What's important? What are we trying to achieve in terms of capability? What does a capable safety person look like? And again, we go back to the INCHPO Singapore Accord, which has got some details in there around people that are working within organizations. But what we seem to be lacking a little bit is the capability of people that are working across organizations. And I think that's where there's a gap, and that's where we need to tighten things up.
So is that how you would define what we're talking about? Whether it's sector or profession, it's basically people that hold their hand out and say that they're a safety manager or advisor or a practitioner of some sort, or however
Yeah,
you would define that.
yeah.
But
I think there's a definite divide there. I think someone that's working in safety within an organisation is quite different to someone that's offering advice across businesses. Primarily, a safety manager, in my mind, is a manager. So the skills there should be heavily focused on management. A safety consultant should be a subject matter expert in various different fields, but what those fields are is often not clearly defined. And I find that quite a few external safety people push the limits a little bit sometimes. Like there's certain things that I would never do because I'm just not comfortable doing it. Well, I don't think that's necessarily true across everybody. But you can understand why, it's a competitive market. People want to make money. So
yeah,
I think you're always going to have that tension between the two.
I'm not sure I'm fully on board with the idea of a safety person within a company primarily being a manager. I think I would liken it to sort of an in-house legal counsel where you're kind of a professional that's embedded within the organization to make decisions, but not necessarily to help inform decisions, but not necessarily to make decisions.
Yeah, that's interesting in itself. Have you looked at the Singapore Accord?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, so that I think a bit of homework for you, Des, if you get chance between. Or mind you, hopefully that disclaimer should do it for now. I can't imagine anyone giving us any feedback other than positive about your disclaimer today. So you won't need to rewrite a disclaimer this week. So maybe have a look at the Singapore Accord, because that's aimed at safety managers within different levels of organizations. So safety coordinator, safety advisor, safety officer, senior safety manager, and it details the skills that they're expected to have. And it's quite interesting looking at that because I think there's quite a management bent on it as
Right.
opposed to safety knowledge. But again, the fact that you see it slightly differently to I do is possibly part of the problem when we should really all be singing from the same song sheet. And the
Yeah.
fact that we're not creates uncertainty. And uncertainty is a little bit problematic in safety.
So I mentioned three beliefs that I thought were widely held by people that hold themselves out to be safety professionals and that were fundamentally wrong. Should we go through those?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Love to.
So the first one is one that we've actually already talked about, which is the idea that we need to move beyond compliance, and this belief that moving beyond compliance, we're achieving more in the safety space. But from my argument that where no one's actually complying, the idea of moving beyond compliance loses a bit of meaning. And so that's the first one. The second one is that if it's not documented, it didn't happen, or that processes and things need to be documented for evidence.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a fundamentally wrong belief to have. The third thing is the idea that it must be measured to be managed, and the idea that safety can be reduced to a series of numbers that light up your traffic light dashboard and tell you whether you're safe or not. I think if that's your belief, if that's your initiative, then you're misleading yourself.
Yes, and I in the role that I have, I often come across that document-driven mentality. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. Interestingly, I was just reading a case this morning, a forestry case. I don't know if you've read that this morning.
No.
Yes. So it's another private prosecution, which would be something I think we should touch on in future episodes because this seems to be becoming more and more common. So it was a forestry company, and they had a fatality. One of the lead breaker outers got hit by a block which is on the cable that they used to haul the logs across the valley. And WorkSafe didn't prosecute, but the fathers brought private prosecution, and it was heard in court the last 3 days, I think. And I'm only reading this from media, so We just got to put that disclaimer out there. And one of the things that said is that they had lots and lots of safety documentation. So this logging company had lots and lots of safety documentation, possibly way above what people would expect in the industry. But again, it's that whole thing that doesn't, the amount of information you've got is of secondary importance to actually what's happening.
It could even be worse than that. Having reams of information can actually be evidence that you're not doing everything reasonably practicable, because if you've declared that you're going to do something to keep people safe, then you're also declaring that that's reasonably practicable. And then if you turn around and not do that, or not do it to 100%, then that's actually evidence for a prosecution against you.
Wow.
So not only is it not being effective in terms of keeping people safer, you're actually just creating a database of liability that can be used against the organization.
So if for example, so I'll just tap into your legal brain a second then. So if something like this happened, and then you immediately tighten up procedures, protocols, etc., is that effectively you admitting a degree of guilt?
To some extent, yeah, you're basically retrospectively saying that these things were reasonably practicable to do.
And we haven't done them, and therefore we end up in that space.
Yeah, so there's that potential for that to be used against you.
And this is what we're talking about now is really fundamental to moving forwards in safety, isn't it? So when even though this topic is about capability, it's being able to have these conversations with people and understand this. And I think if we look at the capability within the profession, we've got to go back to the learning pathways and how people enter the industry. And it even ties back into that whole concept of what is a generalist, I think. And you've come into safety. Your role is largely safety, right?
Yeah.
Is safety your highest qualification?
Yes.
On the qualifications framework.
Yes.
But you've got other specialties that have led to that. So when you do your safety, you're actually anchoring it in previous learnings, previous education.
That's right.
Which for you is the law, right? Or ancient Greek. Yeah, and for me it's education. So I get quite interested in this, is that I think the first qualification, or the first sort of post level 3 qualification that you do, is always your anchor point. That's always where your initial expertise exists. You then learn anything else, but you've always got that slight bent on it of where you came from. And it'd be interesting to do a survey, maybe we could do this, about safety professionals and where they've come from in terms of what's their first qualification and what's their last qualification. Because I think we're all, in some way, even a generalist would be sort of a specialist.
Yeah. I think I know what you mean.
You think I know what I mean? I don't know if I've explained that particularly clearly. You could probably sum it up in 3 words, but that's, I find that quite interesting. That there's certain things I would never offer legal advice to anybody because I've never studied the law. But if somebody wants to develop a training course, my background's in education. That's where my strength would lie, and that's why I think the capability is understanding what people's strengths are and how they can work with that and push on through that.
I touched on that in the last show when I mentioned that a lot of the tertiary education courses in health and safety through a science pathway. They're usually run by the science department, and I think that could be part of the problem why these beliefs sort of continue to prevail, is because they're not getting that sort of input from the other professions. So when I did the law unit at the tertiary institution I went to, it was just there was so much missing, and it was a little bit misguided. And I see it play out with safety practitioners. They think that there's only one act out there, and they think that there's only a handful of regulations. Actually, there's probably dozens and dozens of acts that apply in any given situation, and safety is is important, but it's not the only one, and it's sometimes not the most important one, and it's sometimes not the most applicable one.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was the case. Was it a few years ago when I looked at the New Zealand cricket and the opportunities for spectators, particularly children, to be struck by a cricket ball in the crowd, and I was sort of wading my way through health and safety legislation, and I happened to mention it to you, and you said, well, maybe you should look at a different piece of legislation. And we looked at I can't remember what it was now. It was the Landowners Act or something, wasn't it?
Owners Occupiers Liability Act.
Yeah, it was Occupiers Liability
Yeah.
Act, and we ended up finding some case law from the House of Lords in the UK from 1829.
That was a good year for
Where
cricket.
it was a very good year, where that lady with carrying her shopping from the shop to home, right past the oval cricket ground, got struck by a cricket ball,
Yeah.
and she took it all the way to the House of Lords, and the three law lords basically said that she knew there was a cricket game going on, so the cricket authorities had no case to answer, which is fascinating.
The game continued.
The game continued, and yes, I think that's a huge piece of it. And when I think about the amount of law that I studied in my tertiary qualification, my safety tertiary qualifications, it was absolutely negligible. I think it was tiny. We looked at maybe 3 or 4 pieces of case law, but we didn't go the breadth of actually tons of different laws apply and have safety implications in them.
That's right, and just concepts that aren't typically looked at when it comes to health and safety, like the idea of voluntary assumption of risk, or if something's so routine and everyday that you should already know that there's a risk there, such as the cricket ball when you're walking past a cricket stadium.
Yeah.
I saw a post on LinkedIn recently about someone following the White Island tragedy prosecutions by WorkSafe, and the topic of discussion was about the use of waivers or disclaimers. And I saw a lot of safety people chiming in saying, I can't believe people still use waivers. They have no effect in health and safety law, which is correct. I don't believe that they have any effect in health and safety law also. But health and safety is not the only act. There's dozens of other acts. So they might have little utility in safety, but they might have a waiver might have a lot of utility in occupiers liability law. And it's not just law, it's common law as well. It's a part of law, but it's not just legislation, I should say. It's also common law. And it's not just law, it can also be contractual. And I'm pretty sure if people had a decent read of their insurance policies, they would probably be required to have a waiver in just about everything, insofar as it can be applied legally. So, we seem to have blinkers on as a profession that there's only one act, but there's many acts. And the law of evidence is another one that's a whole body of case law and acts that influence the way evidence is assessed and rated and taken into account. And again, we're just stuck in this rut of everything must be documented. If it's not documented, it didn't happen, and it's just nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah. No, I think
Well, I think we're proving that by videoing this, right? This isn't documented. This is videoed, and I'm back. Woo!
Excellent. Good to have you back.
Oh,
So
boys, listen, I don't know what's going on. I think I've got to humbly apologise for my technical incompetence.
we tried our best to hold it together.
But actually, that raises what just happened to us. I mean, we're taking risks, right, with what we're trying to do here, and I know the show's probably gone a little bit off topic, maybe, and we're having this conversation, but we're taking risks by running this live, right? We are doing this live. We are not pre-recording this, and some people may look at that and go, "Wow, you guys are crazy." We thrive. We're living on the edge, right? Where the sheer excitement of being live is just phenomenal, right? However, with risks, I guess, and that's what maybe another topic to talk about and put on the spinning wheel of death is risk. There's two possible outcomes, right? There's the negative outcome, which generally we focus on in safety, and then there's the positive outcome. And I don't know about you boys, but lining up I know there's a bit of scrambling before the show goes live, and no matter how much planning and organization, but it's the thrill, right, of being live and trying to think on our feet and be adaptive and innovative. And I guess that's what today's really taught us, right? This all went, I was so organized. I've even printed off show notes. I've done some research, and it all went sideways, right? But we adapted, and you boys held it together, and we've provided another hopefully entertaining and informative show. So yeah, that's what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. Can I ask, there's a final question.
Oh, you can do whatever you want, Andy.
Why? I mean, your background looks great, but why is it back to front?
Is it back to front? It's not deliberate. I don't know why that's the case, but I'm glad you pointed it out. I'll cover up the writing so it doesn't.
That's what I thought. Just stay there. That's perfect.
But hey, I mean, how cool is that logo though? We're going great guns. And I believe, I don't want to a bit of a spoiler alert here. I believe there could be some merch in production or
Some in the
development.
pipeline.
No,
We're not saying any more than that.
no, we don't want to say any more.
Christmas is just round the corner.
Whoop whoop. Yeah. And listen, again, we're not doing this. The merch will be there to help grow the show, right? Because clearly, my technology needs some upgrading. so
Put Brenton on an IT course.
if anyone wants to sponsor my IT equipment, I'm more than willing to shamelessly plug you and sell my soul. I've got 2 children I'm prepared to give up as well. Just for some half decent IT gear. So, hey, listen, as we bring this show to an end, let's bring a little bit of normality back to it. Des, mate, anything? I know, I didn't get to talk to you about it. I know the last time we spoke, you were down in Owakuni, the Big Carrot. I guess, how did that go, and what have you got coming up in the next couple of weeks?
Well, the holiday was awesome. Love the town. I'm planning to go back there as soon as I can. So nothing much over the next couple of weeks for me. 'Cause it's kind of business as usual, which is nice for a change. It's been a crazy couple of months. But I'm also thinking of recording a talk for the Circus of Safety, which is based on a talk that I delivered to the NZISM Construction Forum. And it's about the idea or the misbelief that everything must be documented. And if it's not documented, it didn't happen. So it's a short talk, and I'm thinking of making a sort of recording discussing that in a bit more detail.
I think that's a great idea. I've actually had some feedback from some of my clients that listened to you in that and said it was excellent. So if we can make it more widely available, I think that would be a really great thing.
Yeah, and that's quite exciting, Des. I know, unfortunately, I missed that event, so it'd be great to join in and listen in and have that available going forward. So some exciting stuff coming up. Thanks, Des. Andy, what about you, mate? It sounds like you've been gallivanting around the country again, having dinners with people and all that kind of exciting stuff.
Absolutely. A little bit quieter the next couple of weeks, not so much traveling, hopefully. Well, I just got an email now, so that might change. Yeah, I'm doing some development work, some consulting, building some bow ties, writing a guidance document related to critical risk management. But maybe we can talk about that another day.
No, I'm sorry, I've fallen asleep.
He's generating a lot of documented evidence, Brenton. That's what he's doing.
So clearly doesn't listen to anything on the show, Des. I'm pretty sure you just outlined.
Absolute bastards.
Honestly, Andy, come on, mate. Let's lift your game, will you?
I need to work to make my living. You've got guaranteed income. I've got a son. He needs some new shoes. Come on.
Oh wow! So you're putting your morals, your ethics aside to do nothing but make money. Wow, Andy.
No, I just want my son to have some shoes.
This show's taken a turn because Brenton's giving away his children, and he can't clothe his children. Can I suggest a Circus of Safety logo embedded pair of shoes for your son?
Wow. Fantastic. Well, yeah, no, excellent. Well, I think I'm going to be on the lookout for some new IT equipment over the next sort of couple of weeks. Hopefully, I can get that sort of sorted. And also, I've got another life outside of work and safety, and really excited. Got the BMX club that I'm heavily involved with, East City BMX. got our winter race met in on Sunday, so that's going to be quite exciting. Looking forward to that as we rapidly approach the BMX racing new season here in New Zealand. I'm quite excited. So a couple of hopefully big weeks before the next show, gentlemen. Now, listen, before we wrap up, we probably, when we started this thing, and I know Andy and I have had a conversation about this week, actually, we probably didn't quite realize, well, really, this is probably more therapeutic for the three of us than it was for anything else, but we've rapidly been growing followers, which is quite intimidating, especially when you start having IT issues. And we've actually got a considerable number of followers on our LinkedIn page. So just wanted to shout out to one of them. I've randomly selected them. I've almost kind of created another spinning wheel of I guess followers, if you will. So if any of our followers felt a bit dizzy this morning, it's because I was spinning you on a wheel. So the spinning wheel of followers is what I've dubbed this one. Me and spinning wheels, I don't know what it is. Christian Fournier, an EHS consultant and author. Thanks for following. Big shout out to you. Listen, would love to get your thoughts. If there's any topics you'd like us to put on the spinning wheel, please reach out and let us know. Otherwise, I guess, gentlemen, that's a wrap, right? This will be up on Spotify and all your other favourite podcasts. What are they called, Des? You're more of a podcaster. What are the things where you consume your podcasts called? What are those? Like Apple Podcasts and Outcast?
There is a word for it, but it escapes me. It's something podcast receiver or some more elegant way of saying that. But
well, there we go. There's a bit of research for us. I suppose if we're providing materials for people to consume, which is how it's been.
A podcast repository.
A podcast? No, that just sounds. No, that just sounds a bit.
You're thinking suppository. That's something quite different.
Oh God. Okay. So, well, guys, great show again. Great to chat. And listen, we will no doubt see you in a fortnight.
Awesome. Speak soon.
Thanks, Brenton.